Welcome back to the Foundr podcast. What if I told you that the same year a founder scaled from 2 million to 20 million in revenue, they also came within inches of bankruptcy and had to lay off 90% of their team just to survive? Well, today's guest, Natalie Holloway, is the co-founder of Bala, the 9-figure wellness brand that revolutionized wearable weights and became a household name. They started with just $5,000, shipping 75,000 units from their garage while working full-time advertising jobs. Natalie and her husband Max turned a simple yoga class frustration into one of the most recognizable fitness brands of the decade. But what most people don't know is the brutal reality behind the Instagram-worthy success story. So in this raw and honest conversation, you're going to learn how to bootstrap a physical product business from $5,000 to 9 figures while working full-time jobs, the critical mistakes they made when scaling too fast, and the frameworks for rebuilding a profitable business after near bankruptcy.
Hear the stories, learn the proven methods, and accelerate your growth and future through entrepreneurship. Welcome to the Foundr podcast with Nathan Chan.
Natalie, welcome to the Foundr podcast. The first question that I wanted to ask you is what led you and Max to create Bala after being burnt out from your previous career?
So Max and I, as you said, we were burnt out because we were working in advertising in LA at an agency called 72 and Sunny. And we were truly, it was pre-COVID. We were burning the midnight oil, basically eating dinner at the office, being at the office till 10, 11 at night, and then having to go back the next morning for a meeting. And this was just like months and years on end. So we got burnt out and we had just started dating. And so we kind of romanticized this idea of the gap year, but later in life, we were late 20s, not right after college. And so we said, let's quit our jobs, let's travel, and let's get jobs when we return. We kind of just didn't overthink it. We said, what's the worst thing that could happen? Worst case, we kind of go, one step down in our career, but we get jobs again in advertising. So we went off on that journey and we were doing a yoga class. And at the time, I was very into incorporating weights into my yoga class because I felt like it's the perfect workout. It's a blend of strength training mixed with a flow. And so we were doing a yoga class and it was far too easy. We wanted to sweat and there was no sweat happening. So it was right after that we started brainstorming. How could we have made that class harder? And we landed on wrist and ankle weights, which existed, but they existed in a way in which they were from the 80s, neoprene, not cute at all. No one even used them. So we were brainstorming. We said, why did this tool totally leave the market? No one uses these, but really you should be seeing girls wearing wrist weights on their walks or at Equinox to get a little bit more of a workout in. So that was the idea behind it. And Max, who is our product designer, and he's literally my husband and co-founder, has designed every product that we have. It just kind of came to him and he drew it out right there. And we were like, maybe we're onto something. Let's do this.
And so what happened next? You guys famously started this company with $5,000. We've got a lot to unpack. You've been on Shark Tank, near failure, laid off whole team. You've got some crazy stories now, 9-figure business. What happened next? $5,000. What was the MOQ? Talk me through that piece, because everyone always wants to know, how do you start?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't straightforward. We had no idea what we were doing. Our secret sauce, I believe everybody has an unfair advantage. Our unfair advantage was we knew, marketing and branding and how to produce a shoot and tell a story. So that's what we did know. But what we didn't know was anything about product development, running a business, anything else. So we set back to the US about a year later and we just said, let's do a side hustle. Let's make a little bit of extra money while we get back into advertising. Got jobs again. We were in New York this time, got jobs in New York at advertising agencies. And in the background, we were just working on Bala and seeing if it could be a thing and if we could get this product to life. And so we just started, our approach was really just to like take steps every day and see what happened. And all the while we were working a 9 to 5, if not like a 9 to 8, because I already talked about advertising and how hard that was at the time, probably still is. So we were working in advertising and just treating it as a side hustle. And we just prototyped the product for about a year. I ended up going to China right before we launched, and the MOQ was, I think it was $40,000. And that's the next step was like, how do we get $40,000? We launched a Kickstarter and we got the money. And then we just started selling the product. And for 2 years, we had we had our advertising job. So we truly bootstrapped it for the first 2 years. And then we can talk about Shark Tank. I'm sure we will. But then we quit our jobs pretty much right before we aired on Shark Tank. And that's when really things got crazy.
Yeah. Okay. So from our research, it cost you guys $5,000 to launch the brand. What did you spend those $5,000 on?
So it was probably about $4,000 on the prototype. And then the next 1,000, and it might have been a little bit more than that, over the next several months, but producing a shoot, like my sister shot it probably for free and maybe paying a model a couple $100, and Max built our website. So everything was really, really bare bones. And we spent little to no money to get it at least live. And then from there, we pretty much funded the business with selling the product. Sell 2, buy 1 more. It just kind of went like that.
Got you. And talk me through the manufacturer. Like, how did you find someone to produce your prototype? And, did you produce it in China to begin with? Like, talk us through that piece, because a lot of people find that as a real barrier as well.
I think that's a huge barrier. And it's really hard because you don't know if you haven't been to the factories, like you're just sending money into online and hoping that they produce your product. Like it's very a scary thing. So we actually had a connection that at least started the conversation in China. Max's family's in the toy industry. And so his uncles knew a toy factory, and that toy factory pointed us in the right direction and actually developed our first prototype. And then we moved it to another factory. But that was a tough, even having someone we knew who produced toys, it was still like, where do we go? How do we start getting this thing made? Because then you have to think about the materials and where you should source those materials, and then how you manufacture it and what creative they need to do so. So there were a lot of unknowns. And again, I think we figured it out by just taking steps every day and just letting it, the path like lead us to the answer.
Hey Foundr fam, I want to take a quick break from the conversation to talk to you about something super exciting. We're officially partnered with Omnisend, the email marketing and SMS platform built specifically for e-commerce founders. We've been recommending Omnisend to Foundr students for a while now because it just works. Whether you're launching your first store or you're scaling to 7 figures, it really helps you automate your marketing and get real results. Did you know on average, Omnisend customers make $68 for every $1 they spend, which is an insanely good return on investment. And because you're part of the Foundr community, you get 50% off your first 3 months with the code FOUNDR50. Just head to omnisend.com/founder without the E to get started. All right, now let's jump back into the show. Yeah. And when it comes to the prototyping phase, that it sounds like from your husband's sketching it on a napkin and like working out what that first product was to actually getting the prototype, having it ready, launching the Kickstarter. It sounds like that took you guys about a year or so, right?
Yeah, I think from prototype, probably a little over a year. From prototype to launching on Shopify, a little over a year.
Yeah. Okay. So Then you did the Kickstarter. Tell me about that. You raised $40,000. That was your first form of validation, or did you speak to customers, people in the space? Like, how did you know you were onto something, or you guys still weren't sure until you launched the Kickstarter?
Well, we launched the Kickstarter and we still didn't know what we had unlocked. Like, we still didn't. I believed it was going to be something cool, but I don't think I believed how big it could be at that point yet. I think that came a lot later with a lot more validation. But we believed that people wanted it and understood it enough to like keep going from the Kickstarter. And I think it probably was months later when we were getting in Goop or Free People, or I would be at a trade show and we'd hand them the product and people literally would light up. And that's when we realized how big it could get. But I think until then, it was really like a slow burn. Like, do you like this? Like, we just, we didn't find our people yet. And I think putting anything out into the world is scary, and you second guess yourself the whole time. Like, I didn't even post it on my own social media because I was like so scared of putting it out into the world. Even though the Kickstarter was live, I still was like, I'm gonna keep this like to myself a little bit.
Yeah, I can really resonate with that. I remember when I launched Foundr, I was the exact same. Like, I launched this magazine, didn't know anything about business or entrepreneurship, and I kept it quiet. Like, I told a couple of my really close friends, but I didn't post about it because I was embarrassed and I was nervous and I was scared of what other people would think of me. And I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think sometimes it's quite freeing to hear that, because sometimes you look at super successful founders and think, oh, they're so fearless. They have so much courage. But it's just these micro steps that eventually lead you to where you are right now. But it's not, always from the start, so much confidence. I know this is going to work, and you don't care what other people think, and you're not worried about failure, and you're struggling, and there's times you're thinking about giving up. Like, that part is all those things that people from the outside, it looks like you might not face. We all face it. It's being human, right?
Yeah. I think it's cool when you get a lot of comments or a lot of traction on something, but that's never the case when you first launch something. So it is scary to be like putting yourself out there and wondering if people will like it or hate it or judge you. And it's funny that you had that same feeling. I'm sure anyone who's put themselves out there can relate.
So does that mean you didn't have a Kickstarter launch party?
I kept it like, I was like, this is just going to go out to the public, not to my friends. And then I think along the journey of the Kickstarter, we started to need people to purchase it, and then I really had to like blast it out. But no, we didn't. We had a Shark Tank party, but that's way more exciting.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. So we've done a successful Kickstarter campaign. Early days Foundr, I took all the best interviews, all the most popular interviews, and put it into a coffee table book. Now, we don't sell it anymore.
Cool.
Yeah, we don't sell anymore, but we sold at least, I think, 10,000 copies. Now, for the Kickstarter, I think we sold maybe 1,000 or something. So we raised a couple $100,000. And a big part, they say, in the Kickstarter playbook is if you want to get on the trending page, you have a party with, friends, family, customers. And then when you launch, you get everyone to purchase, so then it trends. Like, that's part of the go-to playbook, you know what I mean? So that's why I asked, did you have a party?
Well, that's really great to know now. But also it was, we didn't have any money. So you have to have money to have a party. And at that stage, we didn't. So we were really more like emailing people. But I think if I launched a Kickstarter again, now I know what to do.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so you had this Kickstarter. You raised $40,000. At that stage, you still didn't know you were onto something. Well, you kind of did, but what happened next? Because for the first 2 years, you hand shipped 75,000 units from your garage, which is crazy. Like, I've started a physical product brand, and I don't run anymore. We sold it. But I remember the early days, Healthish. It was fun to hand produce the to hand package the product, write your little note, and you get orders in. It's really exciting. But it does get to a point where you just like, oh my God, I don't want to do it. I'm over it. But like, we probably did that for the first maybe, I'd say 6,000 to 10,000 tops, but 75,000 in 2 years. That's crazy. We probably did, 10,000 plus before we started. Yeah.
It's insane. I mean, I look back on that time. I think it's just I didn't know. And I also, now I'm surrounded by, other people building businesses. And I feel like there's a phone call away to ask what the next thing to do is. But at that time, I really didn't know anybody who had their own business. And so I was really just figuring out, I thought this is what we were supposed to do. But looking back, it was insane. We were shipping with the help of like my sister and maybe a few other people, like shipping for like 5 hours a day from our back garage at this point in Hollywood. And it was insane because we were literally shipping to complex retailers like Bloomingdale's and Free People. And I should have called that earlier and switched to a warehouse. But I think in our mind, a warehouse was so expensive and unknown. And again, I didn't have any peers to look to that I could get advice about this. And so we just kept doing it. And then it was Shark Tank where we go, this is about to blow up. We can't do this any longer. So we actually shipped all of the Shark Tank orders. And that was our last bit before our warehouse was up and running.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about Shark Tank. What happened there?
Shark Tank was crazy. We got a call I applied one day. I was just in like, let's go mode and just doing as much as I could every single day. And so I did this little online application. When you start a business, especially if it's a product business, everyone says you should go on Shark Tank. I'm sure people said it to you when you had your business. But so it was one of those times and I said, okay, I'm just going to apply. And I applied. The producers called me. We were in the running. We had a few calls for, I believe, season 10. And then we got dropped and we didn't know why. So we were super bummed. And they said, okay, we might call you for future season. And by the way, we can't tell you why. And it was probably 4, 5 to 6 months later that they did call us. And they said, it's a new season of Shark Tank. We think you guys would be great. And so that's when we started getting on, weekly calls with the producers and you're kind of actively pitching to get on the show. And then we had our fateful day where all 5 sharks wanted in, and it was still the most craziest day ever.
And you raised money from Mark and eventually Maria Sharapova as well. Why'd you go with Mark? And how much did you raise? And also at that time, what was your revenue?
Yeah, so so our revenue going on the show, it was year 2. So I think first year was like $200,000 to $300,000. Year 2 jumped to $2.1 million. But really like just grassroots, it took off sort of thing. And that's when we went on the show. And all 5 sharks that said this is a good deal. And Maria Sharapova was the guest shark. And since she's an athlete and a fashionista, it was, I think, validation for the other sharks to say, oh, if she likes this, this must be good. And so we went into it wanting Mark and Maria to be our dream team. And somehow we walked away with them doing it. And we got $900,000 for 30% of the company.
Okay. And take me back to, like you said, it was the most craziest day ever. Why?
I think at that point, I had not been public speaking a lot. We're year 2 of this business and it has become so important to us. And we're about to pitch on live TV in front of like 5 billionaires. And I think that was very intimidating to pitch. We had this like cheesy skit that we memorized and we're just kind of waiting backstage on the lot for them to tell us at any moment we're up. And there's no like redos. There's no editing. It's just straight up, You're in there. You're in the tank for an hour, and they're going to drill you about your business, your baby. And so that was really scary because we didn't know what they were going to say. I mean, we thought they'd pick us apart and say, "Oh, anyone could copy this," or um, just anything that they could say. And we didn't know what the reaction would be. So we went in there and we could tell they were vibing with it. And that energy, I think, really fueled us for that hour-long interview where, when you can tell somebody's into what you're saying, you feel more confident. And I think that really helped with our confidence during the pitch and being able to answer their Sharky questions. Because we also never raised money to date. Like the language was different to us. So being peppered, essentially by like investors with all of this language that of course we prepared for, but it was new to us. So it was terrifying.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've had quite a few friends that have been on Shark Tank. I had a similar story to you. When Shark Tank first come to Australia, I auditioned. The producers said they loved me. I went for Foundr. Like I went trying to get on Shark Tank for Foundr, the magazine. At the time, we were just a magazine and podcast. And yeah, I didn't get on. But one thing I will tell you, and this is just that I know, and you know this, and I'm sure a lot of people do, a lot of the deals don't actually go through after due diligence, all of that stuff. Yours actually did.
A lot don't go through, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me what happened next. How long between shooting to it airing, and then take me back to your launch party then? Like, what happened?
Our launch party, well, Max and I eloped actually, pretty much a month before Bala existed in the world on Shopify. And so it was kind of like the wedding we never had. Like all of our friends and family were there, the Shark Tank party. It was like the most exciting moment because it was just this like moment of hope and opportunity because our brand was being put out there to the world. Millions and millions of people tune into that and continue to. So the Shark Tank party was really fun, and I would imagine like as close to our wedding as we could get. And then I forgot the other question that you asked.
Yeah. So take me back to that day. Like it aired.
Mm-hmm.
You had this party, all your friends. Like what happened to sales? Were you worried about getting a bad edit? Because that was one thing I was worried about. Like you just never know, because sometimes they really put you in a bad light too. You got to be careful.
Yeah, I know it's reality TV. I know they want to make it look, dramatic or sad. They want you to cry. So I knew that going in that they could make us look dumb or something. But I think we were happy with the edit. We were excited immediately. It airs on the East Coast and then the West Coast. So the East Coast aired and we just saw like almost sold out. I think we sold out on Amazon. And we were like padded with inventory. So like more people than we could have ever imagined on our website. And we sold out on Amazon. And then the West Coast airing happened and we had sold out on D2C at that point. So the orders were just flowing in. And I think it was really crazy and exciting to see. That was February 28th of 2020, 2 weeks before the world shut down because of COVID. So what happened next is what we never could have expected. We aired on Shark Tank. Great. 2 weeks later, world shuts down. Literally all of my friends say their last public outing was our Shark Tank party. And then everyone was sheltering in place. And there was a scarcity of toilet paper and workout equipment. So we were on the radar. I mean, even now people have stories of trying to get Bala because we were notoriously sold out that entire year. Product would land, it would sell out. Product would land, it would sell out. And that was like, I always say that year it was the perfect storm of putting us on the map between COVID and Shark Tank, because we had the media moment and then COVID hit.
Yeah, I remember how hard it was to get gym equipment. You're on Facebook Marketplace, like all this kind of stuff. Like it was so rare, so scarce. It was back orders everywhere. It was crazy. It was crazy. So yeah, the timing couldn't have been better. So you guys went from 2 million to 20 million in about 1 year, right?
Yep. In about 1 year.
How'd you manage that?
We were not prepared for that. We had to grow up quite quickly in business, and we had to start hiring people, and we had to start understanding how much inventory we needed. We had many years of a struggle getting the right amount of inventory in, and we grew quite quickly, and we were not prepared, and we were just taking it day by day. We were very excited and working really hard. My son was also born during that time, so it was a wild time.
And we all thought it would continue forever, hey?
It was yeah.
Like in terms of the sales, I don't know about you, but a lot of my friends and everyone, everyone just scaled up and hired, and we all thought it was just gonna like just keep booming. Like I don't know why. Like I remember thinking, I don't know, and then it just kept going, and like, yeah.
Everyone thought that, I think, and then you have the post-COVID dip, especially in fitness, because everybody then started seeing a decline. And when you're planning for, 20% growth, even if you're just planning for 20% growth and you miss that mark and you maybe have 20% dip, which is what happened to us, it's detrimental to the business, especially because we were bootstrapped, we were not funded, and we hired way too quickly and scaled to like a team of 30. And then it became a pretty dramatic situation. And I think that you kind of saw that across the fitness industry, but across many industries, you saw that. Like there were just massive layoffs. I don't know why we all thought the growth would just continue like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you had the COVID boom, grew the business rapidly, and then you had a near bankruptcy. And we talked about this offline, where this is something that a lot of founders don't talk about enough or aren't as candid. And there's this story out there in the marketplace where, people think that if your business is growing, it's just always up, and it's not necessarily linear. So what happened? So you had this big COVID boom. We all thought, me included, with Foundr and online education, that was another area that massively boomed, right? I had people coming to me on my Facebook that I hadn't worked with. These people I worked with in my day job like a decade ago, saying, hey, I know what you do with Foundr. Like, I'm interested in your membership or one of your programs to help me start an e-com brand or something. And I'm like, okay, wow, why now? And they're like, well, now's the perfect time. There's nothing to do. Like, no better time. Like, people are bored, right? So people are bored. They're either trying to learn, skill up, or they're wanting to work out. Like it was a perfect storm. So I went through a, not as deep journey as you did, but talk me through what happened next.
So we, as I said, scaled up and I think planned for a growth year, and it was a slight dip. It wasn't even a crazy dip, but a slight dip. And we were not prepared for the business to normalize like that. Everyone on our our inventory planner, we bought against the growth. So already, we're over our skis on inventory, and then hired against the growth. So now we have this massive team that we need to fund. And it got scary quite quickly, and we ended up having to do a couple rounds of layoffs. And after that, we went all the way down to 3 people on the team, myself and my husband included. So it went from 30 people, operating this machine, down to 3 people. And that just meant we were literally back to doing everything. And it was a really dark time because, Max and I, we were young leaders whenever we started. We didn't know what we were doing. We were doing the very best that we could. And there was a huge learning curve. And going back to that really, lean team, having to do everything again, it just felt like such a fail. Like it felt like, did we just fail? We just ruined this business. Like we are the only ones to blame. So it was a really dark time. And this was in 22. So this is about, we're 3 years past it, but it was tough.
Yeah, wow. And so you said you did multiple rounds, so you probably started, I'd say, like mid 2021. That's when the market started to shift a little, and then the market's really kind of turned, I'd say, early 2022 and then mid 2022. So you did did multiple rounds of layoffs happened over a year period, like 6 months and 6 months. Is that what happens? So revenue declined. What did it decline?
Probably about a year or less, because I think there became a point where we were like, we need to lay off everybody. And it was like quite quickly. So probably like, yeah, within a year time.
Yep. Okay. So you did the first round, how many people, what was revenue? Then the second round, how many people? Oh, well, we know how many people, but the first round, how many people and what was the revenue and what did it drop to?
I think it went probably from, I don't have this exact, but probably 21 to 18 or something. Like it was a couple million short, but that's the team cost right there, So it just became, and customer acquisition costs were going up. I mean, it was really a dire situation for us. And so we probably did about, I would say, 3 rounds of layoffs, probably about 6 to 8 people each time. And I think each round we thought, okay, let's keep the team intact and like see if we can right size this ship. And it just was not working. So we completely scraped the business to the almost the beginning, and we rebuilt from there. And we came back so much stronger, having done everything the wrong way to then learn the right way. It was like rebuilding a new business.
And what was like Mark saying at the time, or Maria? Like that would have been scary and such a daunting thing to say. Like what happened there?
I think they were telling us to, Mark is he has great advice, and he's always maybe like conservative with the business advice. Like he'll tell us not to take a huge retail PO or not to buy such inventory. He wants us thinking about the future and how this could impact us. And just because it sounds great to get a $1 million PO with a new retailer, it might not be the right call, because you need to make sure there's a market fit. So his advice at that time was probably, you're doing the right thing by cutting the team. And I think it helped that it wasn't just us, it was the entire landscape. The headlines were everyone was laying off, and it became quite clear what we needed to do, because those are we cut Meta completely as well. So we just looked at our P&L, and we looked at it, probably multiple times a week, every week, just looking for anything that we could scrape off. Why did we spend $500 there? What's this subscription? Like we were looking at every single line item at that point, and the line items that were the most costly were the team and, meta spend. So we cut meta spend, and we had to cut the team because we had looked everywhere else for the savings, and it just wasn't there.
Wow. What was your meta spend? What did you cut it from to down to, like you shut it down to zero? What was it from?
At that point, maybe 100,000 a month. It wasn't crazy. I think we still had a okay customer acquisition cost, but we needed every dollar that we made to be spent against our debt that we incurred. And so every dollar mattered. And so that meant cutting photo shoots, our ad spend, like truly going back to the beginning.
Wow. That must have been so tough. Like,
I went through a little bit of a depression after that, because we were just, it was bad. You felt like you totally failed. We were responsible for these people's lives, and we then had to fire them. It was pretty bad. Yeah, did not feel good.
And so what did revenue drop to by that stage after you cut the spend, everything? Because a lot of the time we all look at, everyone has the headlines like, this much in revenue, and then a lot of it can be bolstered just by spending money on ads, all these different things. So what did it drop to?
That was that 17 or 18 figure. Probably the next year was that. 17 or 18 million. So, you're going from 21 to 17 or 18, but the delta, that's what hurt us.
Yeah, wow. And you'd think most people looking from the outside, 17, 18 million a year, you'd think, wow, okay, the business would be doing really well still. You know what I mean? Like that's what people would think from the outside, right?
I think when you've already essentially spent the money on inventory, so we had the inventory for the next year to be a $25, $30 million business, and instead we weren't doing that. So we had all of our cash tied up in inventory. So you literally just don't have money to run the business. And so we had an inventory issue, and we had already spent on the team. So there was that as well. So, we had that team for a year and a half, or whatever the time was. And so you've already been spending that money, essentially. You've already spent the money. So now it's all catch up and trying to pay back the debt.
And did you consider raising more money? Like, was that on the table or the cards? Like, that obviously was an option, but what made you just kind of go, you know what, we're gonna rebuild from scratch and learn from all these lessons? Like, talk me through that, because that obviously would have went through your mind, and a lot of founders do that, right, during tough times.
Yeah, we definitely did consider. We actually did try to raise money, and it was the worst. Again, the worst possible time to raise money. So we were a little later stage for people, and we just weren't in that sweet spot at the time. And no one, when you raise against like a decline, the valuation that we were going to be given was horrible, 1x revenue or something, or 2x revenue. And it's just, I don't even think we just didn't, we tried to raise at a certain point, and then we were just like, it's not the right time. Let's bootstrap this thing again and rebuild. I think we both just felt like if we would have raised, the valuation would have been horrible, and we would have probably lost a ton of our equity, and just wasn't the right call. And wasn't the right time. Nobody was getting, if you were raising money, you were raising it on, on pennies on the dollar. So it wasn't an option.
So you and Max obviously kind of went back to almost ground zero. What was the plan from there? Obviously it has a great story. Tell us what happened, right?
The plan was, we were okay with things slipping through the cracks. The plan was back to the basics, since all of a sudden you have 3 people doing the role of what was once a 30-person team. Like, it's not physically possible. And so we did anything we could, but we said, it's okay if things slip through the cracks. We kind of need to go back to the basics. We couldn't buy a ton of inventory because, again, our money was like tied up in existing SKUs. So we kind of just said, we had these mantras, and it was like, give ourselves grace. And we gave ourselves grace on everything. And we said, this is going to be like a slow rise again. We really actually did not know what would happen years later. There was no telling. But what we did know is we didn't want to go out of business. So we were just, holding on. And it was also very confusing because the business was still loved, and we really did have a good business. You mentioned it. The revenue was still there. Like, people still loved the brand. We knew it's not like people stopped loving the brand and that was the issue. The issue was like, we had a down year, and that's what hurt us. So we just kept rebuilding and kept the excitement up. Consumers had no idea this was going on because we were still, an exciting brand launching new products and things like that. But behind the scenes, we were kind of just playing catch up and really rebuilding. But when we rebuilt, rebuilt with such an eye on profitability from day one. And that is part of of who we are today. And I think it really allowed us to build a strong business rebuild, so.
Hey guys, I really hope you're feeling inspired from today's interview. Now, the truth is, all successful e-commerce founders started from zero, with a spark of an idea and a whole lot of determination. But let's be real, Building or growing an e-commerce business is no walk in the park. And that's where Foundr Plus comes in, which I'm really excited to share with you. It's a culmination of a decade worth of work at Foundr. So if you're feeling stuck in your e-commerce business, you're lacking confidence to move forward, or you're worried about making costly mistakes or not knowing how to grow your business, Foundr Plus is here to support you on your journey. You get access to a customized learning pathway with proven frameworks from successful e-commerce founders for fast results, incredible programs, a supportive community, weekly live mentorship, exclusive savings on startup tools, and 24/7 real human support. Try Foundr Plus today for just $1 for 7 days so you can accelerate your business goals. Visit foundr.com/start $trial or click the link in the description to claim your trial. All right, now let's jump back in the show. Yeah, and look, you guys have grown pretty fast since, right? Like, it's not like you haven't slowed down. Obviously, you had a bit of a speed hump, or you would say a bit of a detour, but you guys are, a 9-figure a year brand now, and you've got over 20 products across your portfolio under the brand. You've got 20 more in the next 18 months. You're also writing a book as well. Like, you got a lot of good stuff going on. So are you grateful now that this happened?
I am very grateful. I tell myself that every day. It was hard and it was a struggle, but now I'm like, I get to enjoy a little more. And I'm grateful it happened because I think it really just taught us, to keep an eye on every dollar always, and never lose sight of a certain category of the business, even if you have, ahead of in a certain area of the business, like, keep your eye on the ball. And so while I'm able to not fully be in the weeds, I just keep my eye on every channel of the business and make sure I understand what's going on so that we never kind of make the mistakes that we already made.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And you guys have had a lot of copycats with your products as well. Tell me how you've worked through that, because that's something that a lot of people care. Like, a lot of people, I think early stage founders, I don't know, personally, I don't know why, but it's a big thing around protecting your idea, worrying about being copied. Maybe it's because of the Facebook movie, I forget what it's called, with what happened with Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not sure, but
Social network.
Yeah, social network. But from one thing I do find is, like, a lot of people are really big on protecting their idea, not letting anyone know, worrying other people are going to copy it before they've launched.
Totally. And I think I hear that too. And I feel like you still have to put it out there, but you also do have to protect it. For us, it's tough because we have, if you look on Amazon, you'll see so many counterfeits, and these are products that like Max drew out himself. And so it's really, really frustrating to see, like, in other countries there's like replicas of the Bala brand, but they call it, something else. And so it's really disheartening to see that, but I think it's part of it, and you just have to remember to innovate. We always say just continue to innovate and continue to win on brand. And that's the way that you'll win, because unfortunately it's part of it. I know you had the same issue with Healthish, and it's so disheartening, but I think if you put your energy into getting all worked up about it, it takes away from the energy you could be spending on innovating or building your community. And so that's where we try to put all of our energy. And so I think I don't even try to look at the counterfeits unless we're going to actually sue them, because we can, but we don't want to be wrapped up in lawsuits all day either. So that's my ethos around it, is just, don't look and keep innovating and building community. But I will say that if you can, it's important to protect your IP, because we have patents on most of our products. And while we don't want to be tied up in lawsuits all the time, it is helpful, because if we want to sue somebody for straight up copying us, we can. So I think if you can get a patent, you definitely should. And you should definitely trademark things. So basic IP is necessary.
Yeah, I agree. That was a mistake I made with Healthish. I had a bit of an ego, and I was through a phase where like I felt like everything I touched turned to gold, and it was like a little side business, and just like it was like, oh, who cares? Like my friend said, yeah, it'll be copied everywhere. I said, I don't care. I don't care. Well, I'm really focused on Foundr, all this kind of stuff, and
Let them.
yeah, and they did, and it was silly. I should have at least got to trademark the design. I couldn't trademark the concept, but I should have trademarked the design. But there's also a period where you can, like it has to be out in the marketplace before you can trademark the design. So I'm always like, a lot of people that we work with and help start brands or grow brands, we always say like, look, this is not legal advice, but from our experience, validate your product first. Get a little bit of traction, no matter how small, then you spend all this money on the legal side to protect it, right? But you really don't know until you launch, right?
Yeah. I mean, and truly, I think that's legit, but there is that time period. So you want to make sure that you at least like apply for the patent first. But I know if you have, $5,000, you don't want to spend it all on a patent. But if you think it's going to be good, you should. Your product, though, I feel like even if you would have patented the design, you don't want to spend that much money just tied up in lawsuits anyway. And it's so easy to recreate that. So it's just this catch-22, and you got to find the right balance, I think.
Yeah, 100%. So like with Healthish, we did not popularize, we did not come up with the idea to have time markers on water bottles to remind you when to drink. They were already there. All we did was popularize the concept, make the design really cool. And now there's so many copycats. Now there's all these different variations. We just popularized the concept. But yeah, I agree with you, right? You're 100% right. We probably couldn't, I don't even think we could have patented the concept. We just popularized it, but we could have trademarked the design. But at the same time, there's so many copycats. So yeah, you get caught up. There's nothing you can do. There is things you can do, but sometimes when you're in other jurisdictions and all these different things, I've got friends that for the most part, yeah, they tell me the same thing, right? It's difficult to chase. I'm sure you guys have had to protect though, and you have to protect, right? That's really important. I've had to protect the Foundr brand before, where there's people that have done silly things, right? So I think it's just part of business, but it's a level of, I guess, maturity as your brand grows that you have to protect it. So I want to talk about, I guess, co-founding with Max. Then I want to talk about your book as well and what compelled you to write it. So co-founding a company with your significant other does add a unique dynamic. I co-founded the company that I had to exit with my significant other. We're not together anymore, and that was a big strain on our relationship.
Oh.
So
Yep.
that's an interesting dynamic that I'd like to just touch on for people.
I think that's interesting that you aren't together. I could see that because it's tough. I mentioned that Max and I got married, and then I think about 1 month later, Bala launched on Shopify. So Bala has been a part of our relationship, our whole relationship. And it's kind of all we know. We only know to work together. It would be weird for me to not work with him. It's like, what are you doing all day? I want to know. But I will say it's tough. And we had periods, especially when we talk about the layoffs, where we were, disagreeing with each other a lot. And that became really hostile and a tough work environment. But we realized that the best way to combat that is to stay in our own swim lanes. So the way that works best for us is we're almost never in the same meeting. He runs with his area of the business. I run with my area of the business. We feel we can do twice as much work that way. And he owns product or legal, and I own operations and marketing, and it's so on. And we pretty much divvy up the business, special projects, whatever it is. One of us is spearheading it, and then we just run with that. And we have a third person who is our CBO, Chief Brand Officer. And I think in that, I don't know if you agree with, there's like a theory of the power of three that I was just talking to another founder about. And there's something interesting about having three people at the helm and splitting it up between three people, because you really can punch above your weight. So we found that that really works and evens us out too, because there's certain things that Max and Brooke can work on, or Max and I don't have to work with everything together at all times. And I think that's helpful.
Yeah, look, that makes sense. I definitely can see the power of three, and also there's a reason, like Y Combinator, these guys are super smart. That's why they recommend that you need three co-founders.
Oh, really? I've never heard that. I need to look into that.
All right, so let's talk about brand collabs, right? You've collaborated with Spanx, Summer Fridays, Emilio Pucci. But let's talk about Spanx. Like, how did that come about? Why did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, we love our brand collaborations at Bala. I think it's become like a core part of our business at this point. It's a way to keep the customer really engaged, get them excited, and get something that's unexpected. And for fitness can really play well with a lot of categories, which I don't think we realized when we launched the brand, but now it's great because you can work with like, from skincare to a yoga brand to really any brand needs a wellness fitness component. So it's allowed our partnership lens to be quite wide. So Spanx was our most recent one. That was really exciting. And it came about, I don't remember how we were connected. It always comes about in a unique way. It feels like we're meant to collaborate with the person that we are aligned with, because they have each come to us in such a unique way, almost like a sign. But Spanx, we were connected, and I think they had a really cool active line that they were launching, and we decided to collaborate and do custom colors, custom products, and it was really exciting. We had amazing launch events, and every touch point was great. So that was our recent launch, but we have a lot more fun stuff coming up. This is our Spanx bangle, but we did a lot of other products too.
And so you're working on a lot now. Well, you always have been. It's pretty impressive, even the growth, right? When to rebuild from where you were to now, like you 5 times revenue top line, obviously maintained, like really had a strong focus on profit as well within the space of 3-4 years. It's pretty impressive. So you work on a book. Tell me about what compelled you to write a book.
So I have been working on the brand for 8 years, Bala. And as you know, we've gone through this crazy roller coaster ride. And it feels like my whole goal the last 2 years was to get it set up where it, is a well-oiled machine. And obviously it's not there yet, but I have become obsessed with the idea of like, me kind of moving out of the day-to-day, and all by while setting up amazing systems where it can't run itself, but you know what I mean? Trying to like get it there as much as we can, creating systems that we're not revisiting. And that kind of left room for the second part of what I believe my career will be, which will be like mentoring other brand founders. And I think it's a natural evolution. You've done it, you built the brand, and now it's time to coach. It's kind of like if you're an athlete, when you can no longer do that, you move on to coaching. And I feel like there's that natural inclination, and I'm always getting hit up to mentor people or to just ask questions, and I don't have the bandwidth for that. So I was like, I want to start putting content out there that helps other people. And I think the first pass at that was a book, because I said, let's make the Bala playbook. Like, I want to tell people in a physical, I want to hear about your magazine too, but in a physical, tangible thing that they can take away. I wanted people to have the Bala playbook. And it's not just like a Bala story. It's basically like, here's the mistakes we made. Here's what we did right. And I'm trying to save you from doing that as well. And so I think it's the playbook. It's the toolkit for other founders to take.
Yeah, it's really cool. Look, I've been able to give back along the journey, which has been awesome, because the education, coaching is a big part of our business because a lot of people come to us. At first, it was like, how do we interview successful founders, tell their stories, build this media arm of the business? But then over time, people are like, well, how do we learn further? And build this amazing platform with Foundr Plus and all of our coaching programs and all sorts of things. But it is really rewarding to be able to help founders grow faster and be able to help them avoid the pitfalls and the things that you have faced. And it's so incredible when you share something or you share an experience and people go out and they implement or they take note and they, take on your lesson and your experiences, and then they get wins. Like, it's such an amazing feeling. Like, that's where the real gold is, to be able to truly impact somebody and change their life significantly. I have so many stories of people that have come through our programs or our education that have really changed their trajectory for their family and their life and their business and their customers through some of the work that we've done. And I think that's something that is part of the hero's journey, right? You have this grand, like, that's how all Disney movies are made, right? Through this, following the, Joseph Campbell's story, right? Like, the hero's journey, like call to arms, you call to action, like, you've got this crazy dream and vision, you build something, and then, you have some success or whatnot, and then you go through these really tough times, right? It is part of it. And then you want to give back and you want to share your story and give back and help others. And I think that's part of the entrepreneurial journey of giving back. So that's really cool that you're doing that. And we are at time. We've been speaking for quite some time. It doesn't feel like an hour, but it has been so awesome to connect with you, Natalie. And thank you so much for being thank you so much for being so open and honest and vulnerable and just real about what it takes to build a super successful business. And congratulations on all your success.
Thank you. You too. I'm excited. I want to dive into y'all's platform. Is it mostly for early stage? I mean, I know all about it on Instagram and stuff, but like the coaching, is it all early stage?
Look, mainly early stage focused, but we are starting to build more for post launch and growth and scale. So, because we've got some really incredible founders that are going to help us really help people with all sorts of things like Facebook ads, like aggressive scaling and growth, and Black Friday campaigns. Like, we're doing some really cool stuff in that space. So mainly early stage, but we're starting to pivot more into really helping founders grow e-com brands as well. Like, there's some cool stuff we're cooking up.
Yeah, I feel like late stage would be cool too. There's probably a space for that. That's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. So, well, look, we'll wrap there. Thank you so much for your time. It was great to connect. And if you ever find yourself in Melbourne, I'd love to connect further. And when I'm next in LA, I'd love to connect further too.
I'd love that.
Hey guys, if you love this episode, you've got to check out my interview with Davey Fogarty on how he finds trends in undercapitalized markets and turns them into multi-million-dollar businesses.
I'm generally looking for trends globally. We find trends that haven't been kind of capitalized in certain markets or in certain marketing channels.
Yes.
And then we also obviously add our flair to it. You need to differentiate your product